The MTRCB is arguably on the upper tier of government agencies that make Filipino citizens vomit. Not only are they an institution responsible for some of the cringiest infomercials, even by government standards, but they continue to hold a leash on society through a persistently heteronormative and archaic lens. They have been at the center of several controversial censorship decisions throughout history, with their actions in recent years standing out as particularly egregious. But the recent filing of a bill that expands their mandate is the straw that broke the camel's back for most viewers. Proposed by Senator Robin Padilla, Senate Bill number 2805 gives the MTRCB the right to regulate digital platforms. Streaming, after all, is how most viewers get their content now. Not only because terrestrial TV is a dying medium, but streaming is the go-to place for content that push the envelope. Most of the time in creativity, but more often than not in edginess too. How exactly MTRCB is going to regulate such content is a head-scratcher. But we're probably just being doomers and thinking censorship, instead of the likely route, which is inserting ratings bumpers on every program, like they already do with some existing platforms such as Apple TV and Disney+. I'd like to give the MTRCB some flowers though.
Yeah, can I have a dozen red roses, please?
For that one move they did eons ago, and that's their ratings classification. It certainly had its pluses and minuses, but overall, it was the proverbial blind squirrel idiom, the rare victory for a group that's notoriously bad at their jobs. There was a time when R18 stood alone and meant it was strictly for those 18 or older. There was no R13 or R16, and oftentimes it's referred to simply as just R. Nothing confusing. Just the basic understanding that if you're a minor, then it's not for you and you're not getting in. And if that's not enough, the ads are going to have strictly for adults printed in large bold letters, hammering the point home that you should sit this one out. After all, having an adult accompanying someone 13 or 16 isn't exactly all that different if they came in unattended. They still would be seeing visuals not intended for minors, and some hand-holding isn't going to alleviate that. In the US, NC-17 is their equivalent to our version of R18, which is not the same as our Rated X, a label given to anything not approved for public exhibition at all. They do have one common denominator in that they usually pertain to anything with graphic sex or nudity and seditious content, rarely for extreme violence. On the other hand, there's only one PG rating today, and it's commonly understood as 13 and below require parental supervision, whilst in the 2000s and back, we've had 2 to 3 variations of PG. You're obviously familiar with PG-13, which exists to this day, but you probably weren't around yet when there was only PG-7 and a PG-15. Yes, it was indeed a thing. The best one is easily PG-7, which allowed children to watch a fairly kid-friendly movie with just their slightly older siblings or perhaps classmates, without dragging an adult along who will just suck out all the fun.
I can't take this shit. Are you serious?
A great example of this was Casper and Jumanji, which was rated PG-13 in the US. But I wouldn't call it the type of movie you need to have an oldie sitting around for. Thanks to the MTRCB, anyone who's at least 7 years old could enjoy those types of films with no adult supervision. I honestly could not think of a downside to this, other than the occasional odd choice like this Jackie Chan flick. Not only was it rated R in the US, but I don't think kids are going to enjoy watching Jackie kick ass, regardless if it has comedic undertones. General patronage, or GP, has lost its purpose nowadays, with studios copying the Pixar formula and making kids' movies being thematically PG at worst, which makes PG-7 all the more necessary in this day and age. I mean, you wouldn't want toddlers being annoying at the cinema with something like Wall-E or the first Despicable Me, but it's probably around the right age for a grade school pupil. Then there's PG-15. Our answer to a soft R. It's a textbook definition of an R-rated movie, but could technically be acceptable to an older teener, even without parental supervision. Off the top of my head, a movie that was rated as such was Speed, a movie that had some violence but was largely implied, some bad language, but nothing out of the ordinary. I believe The Matrix was also PG-15, as I recall being able to watch it as a high schooler without any adult companions, whilst in most other countries it's R, and sure enough, that rating was warranted. The downside to the PG-15 ratings is that some PG-13 flicks are erroneously lumped in with it. So, a movie normally deemed suitable for 13-year-olds everywhere else means they can't watch, without an adult, until 2 more birthdays. Bummer. With regards to television, the MTRCB taking a hands-on approach is a recent occurrence. For over 3 decades, they generally stood pat and allowed channels to self-regulate with their own parental advisory bumpers.
Some scenes in the following program may not be suitable for young audiences. Parental guidance is advised.
The following program is rated PG.
Some language, humor, and situations may not be suitable for very young children.
Ang susunod na programa ay may temang nangangailangan ng patnubay ng magulang.
The following feature may contain some scenes and languages not suitable for young audiences. Parental guidance is advised.
The following program may not be suitable for young audiences. Parental guidance is advised.
I'm not entirely sure if this was by design, to give networks a bit of creative freedom, or they just didn't bother checking as much. The cynic in me says the latter. For the most part, the trust paid off as there wasn't much questionable scenes to speak of. Other than the news being a perennial source of unfiltered blood and gore, and some shenanigans in noontime shows. I'll give them props for this one either way.
Ang dami-dami mong sinabi, kita pag okay.
That said, the MTRCB still sucks.